Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics.
Where are you, mate? I'm here. Hello.
Yeah,
Your
I'm
podcast?
here.
Yeah, where are you then?
But I'm hiding.
Well, it's a bit late to hide from people now. Come on. What's the matter? Come on, be brave.
I'm embarrassed, mate.
Well, there's so many things you should be embarrassed about, but what are you embarrassed about?
Right, well, you can't get grumpy.
When am I ever grump? From that shot, and all I'm seeing is your lovely smiley face and your shoulders, and I can see by that you are, as they would say in the army, improperly dressed.
Wait, yeah. So funny thing. Sometimes, obviously, I podcast from the studio more often than not, and sometimes from the flat.
Right.
And I'm here in the studio. My shirt is at the flat.
Ah, okay, mate. Okay, yeah.
So apologies to our YouTube contingent. Do not adjust your television or laptops or whatever you're watching us on your phones. I am not in black and white. No, I'm wearing grey because, like a numpty, I've left my my shirt at the back. So apologies. I hold my hands up. That's so sorry, Drew. I've let you down.
You're forgiven, my friend. You're instantly forgiven.
In which case, cheers. How are you?
Yeah, cheers. Lovely to see you, mate. I'm on the squash this week. It's hot out.
Yeah. I mean, we've been over that last couple of weeks, haven't we? But yeah, how's things? Busy?
Getting busy. Yeah, it's sort of not anything major, but a lot of line learning, script reading, and prepping. Basically, had a big busy weekend. We had a big event at the London Business School.
Nice,
which was lovely, and we just about squeezed in before the rain. That was on the Sunday. So we that was a great event. And then this week, as I say, it's a couple of self tapes, and then just plowing through new scripts to learn. So yeah, it's been good fun. Been good. Yeah.
Yeah,
and then it gets ridiculous next week, but we won't go into that.
I know that feeling.
You've had a ridiculous week this week, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I've been all over the place, and I've got a lot of all over the place coming up as well.
Right.
Good news. You remember I told you and everyone possible to keep fingers and legs and everything, toes and whatever crossed. It worked. I landed the role.
Hey!
Can't say anything about it just yet, but there will definitely be some stuff coming up.
Brilliant. That's good news.
Being away for various points and times, so there may well be Drewling Samantics on the road or back in a location again at some point. So we'll look forward to that. But yes, so that was positive. Lots of other things going on. Same as you, fair few scripts that are sort of coming in and need learning and going over and shows to prep for and stuff. So yeah,
brilliant.
Pretty damn busy, but wouldn't have it any other way, mate. I'm very
no. This is true. This is good. Yeah.
Speaking of busyness, what busyness is happening in the world of performance and theatre and whatever else? Have you got some news for us today?
I mean, generally speaking, it's all been a bit quiet. However, we couldn't. I mean, we often do this when we haven't. There's big news with lots of appointments in various artistic directors and stuff like that. But I think we need to bow to the great loss we've had of Glenda Jackson passing away. I mean, I'm left speechless because what can you say about, a woman, she was 87 when she passed away, bless her heart, and, done such enormous great work. And she's recently, we talk about this business holding on to you and never retiring, and we've had those discussions in the past. But she's just done, she just made a movie with Michael Caine, for goodness sake, and he's 90. It's like
you can't keep a good actor down. Does that?
No. I mean, but she was absolutely incredible. I mean,
And
I
we
remember
talked
that
about it on a previous episode, didn't we? We did a whole thing about how she'd done, she'd been in politics and
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
things.
yeah.
She I think she started a couple of charities, or she was behind a couple of charities that did various
Did loads of charity work. I mean, she was. I love the fact that she was born in Birkenhead, and she never lost that common touch with the people. And I mean, and when she did briefly, well, actually for quite some time, give up acting and turn to politics, there was only one party that she was ever going to join.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, she did bloody well. She was. I think she was junior transport secretary or whatever. So she was. She was a. But what a lot of people have come out and said about was she was uncompromising and honest and truthful, and what you saw is what you got. And she said she was asked once about, what is the difference between, or is there some similarity between, politics and the theatre? And she said, the theatre is always a search for the truth. The more truthful you are, the more, believable and the more realistic and the more honest your performances are, your roles are. Yeah. And she said, and also you would hope that politics is exactly the same, a search for the truth. I don't think her words have necessarily stuck with a lot of our politicians recently. Well, no names mentioned.
No, but I think hope is an ideal kind of appropriate word to use there.
I think you've nailed it there.
Politics would be the same. And I think we will continue to hope for many, many years yet to come.
Yes, yeah. But I mean, she won 2 Oscars. I mean, Emmys and I mean, she was enormously decorated for an undemonstrative actor. I always think of her. I mean, one of my favorite performances of hers was Women in Love, which is a beautiful film and starred stunning actors. And then she played Leah. And we've always discussed, appropriation of roles, gender. There are not enough roles for, for women. So, but I thought, actually, if there was one woman or one actor that could step over the line, if you like, I'm trying to be politically collected, but if there was one woman, female actor, that could play a male role and do it well, it was Glenda Jackson. And of course, she went for possibly the most difficult male role in Shakespeare.
Yeah, if you're going to do things, don't do it by half.
If you're going to do it, and at an age when, you think, Christ, she'd already done so much.
Yeah.
And then she really challenged herself and stepped out of her comfort zone, and apparently was absolutely bloody marvellous. I mean, you wouldn't doubt her anyway. But I remember hearing her speak in Parliament. Sorry, I interrupted you there. I remember hearing her, and it was, I just turned on the radio and listened to, Today in Parliament or whatever. And it was like hearing those great speeches in movies and things like that. And you think, oh yeah, girl, you really are using that presence and that power and that delivery to get your point across. And there was no ignoring her. You thought, not only was she right, in my opinion, she just did it well.
Pretty much what I was going to say, something along the lines of looking at how she obviously was well known before she was a politician. Like she was in a position where people knew who she was. And I think you could probably say that outside of the big names, the ones we hear a lot about regularly, you don't necessarily, the general public as a whole, know a lot about multiple politicians. We know the big players, the ones who are in these big roles and always have to be seen publicly, but others not so much. And I think she took, as you say, her position and the fact that she was already well known and used it for good, used it to kind of go, I will be seen as outspoken, but I will strive for what is right, and kind of use this elevation that I've got and not abuse it, if that makes sense. So
I do know what you mean by that. Yeah. Because she didn't, she stepped right. It wasn't as if she carried on acting, which of course she could have done maybe as a politician, but she was taken seriously as a politician because she was a principled woman, great speaker, and believed in what she was talking about. But also she didn't, there was no glamour, there was no I'm Glenda Jackson. It was just like, no, fuck it, I'm a politician. Today I'm a politician. I was an actor, now I'm a politician. And I think, she had integrity. I think that was, that's
that's what I was trying to get at. Like she it would have been naive to go, well, I'm fresh start and people won't know who I am, but equally wrong to manipulate based on that. So I think she found just the right position,
the right balance. Yeah.
Which I mean, again, there are certain people out there that perhaps should think carefully about some of the decisions they make and not abuse position. Maybe.
I'm going to pick you up on that in a minute, but there's one other actor that we've lost as well, who again was considered to have great integrity and great truth. And that's an American actor called Treat Williams. Now, people may not know him immediately.
Name doesn't ring
but
a bell.
Yeah, he was a great romantic lead as a young actor. He did a lot of he did a lot of musicals. He was the lead in Hair, 1970. I'm going to check my notes. Thought it was 78, 79. He's made nearly 200, nearly 120, 130 films, television series. But he was and he did some of those Hallmark, those romantic rom-coms where he played the very earnest and very upright and very decent chap who the leading lady falls in love with.
Yeah.
And he had that kind of decent streak in him. He was always the decent, honest man. And one of the last things I saw him in, and I know you're a big fan of Law and Order SVU, and all those heinous crimes, but he played a character in that, and he played an ex-football player, American football player, who was accused of hiring an underage prostitute, and they leveled sort of levels of, did he know she was that age, and is he a paedophile? And they played around all those ideas. But what actually turned out that he was suffering from mental illness because of injuries sustained as a professional American footballer. And his actual portrayal in that was, at one point you think, you utter swine, you're a bastard. But then you said, hang on a minute, this man has a weakness, has a failing. Yeah, maybe he's done something wrong, and he played the two really well. And his wife, the woman who played his wife in it, was an utter bitch. But I can't remember the actress, but his performance was stunning. And I've seen it twice because they are repeated many times and oft. But it was fantastic. I mean, he did so many. I mean, he had nominations for Golden Globes, Screen Actors Guild, Oscars. I mean, he flew slightly below the radar, but was a superb American character actor and leading man. And he was knocked off his motorcycle.
Oh,
it was a car accident, knocked off his motorbike, and died of complications because of the accident. So very sad ending. Yeah. And I think he's 71. So, he again, another actor who was still working. He was still doing TV shows.
And a lot ahead of him. And so very sad. Well, another one to raise the glass to. And
let's
thank for everything he did in the time he was given. So
absolutely. And Glenda. Good old Glenda.
Of course. Yes. But so go on then. You were going to pick me up on something, and it can't be
it was just about when you said people, abusing power, well, not abusing power, but using their power for ulterior motives, maybe. And it's something that we haven't talked about, and people we haven't talked about because it is sensitive. But I mean, we touched on it briefly in the past, but I was, about people being national treasures or maybe a possible fall from grace. But I mean, we didn't talk about the Philip Schofields. No. We touched a little bit on Will Smith, who became a bit of a bad boy after throwing punches at the Oscars. But I mean, and again, obviously there are allegedlys in this, and we won't go into too many details of what Philip did rightly or wrongly and where you stand on that. But it's very interesting from my point of view to see how people are on a pedestal, and we love them one day, and because of a perceived right or wrong, or perceived wrong, whether they were found guilty or otherwise, they are suddenly gone, and they are, that word today, which I loathe, is cancelled.
Oh,
but they are they are pushed from that pedestal. And if someone who passed away recently and we didn't talk about, for obvious reasons, but Rolf Harris. Now, he passed away, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago. His family, he passed away 2 or 3 weeks before the announcement was made, because they wanted to mourn a father, a husband, or whatever, in their private way, which is interesting. Had that been known, and because then he went through this whole thing of being vilified again for, he did something wrong, and it was proven. It's not allegedly. There were, he did things, we don't need to go into what he did. But at one point, Rolf Harris was Mr. Saturday Night TV. He had undoubted talent. Yes. And Philip Schofield is a great television presenter, like or loathe him. He's very skillful at what he does. He's not always my cup of tea, but I cannot deny his skill at what he does. And all of a sudden, all that is thrown into doubt because of his personal life. I find it very interesting that should happen.
It's a really tough subject, isn't it? And I mean,
it is.
This is, by no means are you or I famous. We have a relatively small following with regards to the podcast, and each of us individually may have been recognized for certain roles in certain things, be that theatre or film, but we are not on the celebrity list by any stretch of the imagination.
Certainly not.
However, regardless of how low our position is in that sort of fame stakes, I would be very confident in saying that both of us are very aware of a position we hold when we are either looked up to or we are in a situation where we should be role models. And I'm not saying that happens particularly often, or that it is of any kind of high stakes, so to speak. But nonetheless, it goes in real life. Does it? You represent someone. In our case, we represent a company, or if we are playing characters, for example, you stay true to that character to do them justice.
Yeah.
There are opportunities given to any performer, to an extent, perhaps to abuse your position. Or not opportunities given to, but you know what I mean. There are times where you
can take advantage of.
It's something simple. We've both worked on film sets where we've been considered extras or supporting artists or very low down the pecking order, whatever. And we'll have seen much more senior, with regards to credit listing or importance to that, certain performers jumping the queue for food. And I'm using this as a very sort of simplistic.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I know.
Now, I know that there are sometimes reasons for that. Oh, this person's got to go and do something really quickly. So they need to get in and out and do whatever, blah, 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 blah. Fine. But we will have both experienced, and there will be lots of other people out there that will be able to sort of support this. There have been times where people on set who are very aware that they are well known or well loved or whatever will use that to advantage. I'm using the simple example of they might have gone to the food truck first. It's not a crime, and it's not something that's going to cause too many issues to anybody. But it is a privilege that is, in the very smallest of terms, being abused. As an example.
Yeah.
The question is, where is that line drawn? So you mentioned Schofield, of course. We as the general public will not know the full extent of certain things and the true story, and it is all, as you said, allegedly, what the news media give us, which some of which will be true, a lot of which will be elaborated upon, exaggerated, etc.
Yeah.
Is there a law against a relationship with a colleague? No, unless it's specified in a contract, absolutely point blank specified. No. Sometimes there will be contracts, and I'm not talking about just performance, I'm talking about the general world. It might say that if you are in a relationship with someone you work with, you must declare it to seniority, so they are aware. So those things in themselves are not illegal or not frowned upon or not I mean, sometimes they are frowned upon regardless. But it's then the other bits that come to it. How did this relationship come about? Did one feel pressured because of the elevation of the person it was with? Did they feel that they couldn't say no? And you talk about Rolf Harris. I mean, we could go back further, and possibly if it happens even bigger, we're talking Jimmy Savile. The man was knighted. He was considered, you used the term national treasure. He probably epitomized it for decades because of charity work and other things. Have you seen the documentary about Jimmy Savile?
I have, yeah.
I mean,
it's extraordinary.
Disgraceful, disgusting, abhorrent. Some of the things that, behind this golden boy, knight of the realm, whatever. And I think you have to be strong of character and a decent person to be able to go, maybe I have these opportunities afforded to me, maybe I could abuse my situation, to choose not to do that. I'm not forgiving in any way whatsoever, but we all know that temptations are often hard to resist, whether that's, I'm on a diet but that chocolate bar looks lovely. Again, a very simplistic, silly way of putting it, but when something is very easily done, i.e. cheating on a diet, it's hard to resist. When it's just that can potentially be applied to the, well, I find, for example, I find that person attractive and I can talk to them because of who I am and they'll feel obliged to, which gives me an advantage over others, perhaps, who find that person attractive. Do you know where I'm sort of going?
I do. I mean, it comes down to, because I mentioned it previous. It's that thing about, with politicians and people it is trust and power. And you look at, and you look at Jimmy Savile and indeed Rolf Harris and a few other celebrities that have fallen from grace and have done things that are wrong, allegedly, shall we say. But
Kevin
you think
Spacey is another one, isn't he?
Kevin Spacey. I mean, you look at those people and you almost believe they can't have done that wrong.
Yeah.
Because they are so in the public eye. They are so obvious that you think, well, how that's, I mean, I for a long time just looked and went, I cannot believe Jimmy Savile, simply because of the enormity of the offences, but also, but he hid in plain sight. All those good deeds he did hid the enormity of his crimes. Yeah. And we trusted Jimmy Savile. We liked Jimmy Savile. He was Sir Jimmy. He was, Jim will fix it and all that. A child. I mean, he ran marathons. He climbed mountains. He unfortunately gave to hospital charities. Right. But I mean, it was that trust, and it's like, Rolf Harris and a few others, Gary Glitter and people like you trusted them because they were there. They made you happy. They entertained us.
And I guess you can't fight the fact that when they are given prime time media slots and that time for people to, well, someone's allowed them to do that, so someone must have vetted them already. That's that kind of, it's not my responsibility as a lonely member of the public to go, well, he needs to win my approval.
Yeah.
Because he's already had to do it to get to the position he's in.
Well, we trust the people that put them there. Yeah. So, it's, and he mentioned, taking advantage. It's that thing of abuse of power. Kevin Spacey was artistic director, the Old Vic, and I mean, what's sad about that is, he was one of the finest actors of his generation, and all that body of work. I will still watch his movies because that isn't him. It was him. God knows whether that was happening on those movie sets, and maybe it was. But you think it's the man is it doesn't mean the role, that moment in time, that hour and a half, 2 hours on screen isn't great acting. It is. The person behind that is the person that maybe I don't want to get involved in. I don't want to go there. And I'm not saying that, Is the portrait of the Queen that Rolf Harris did a really shit portrait? Now we know he was a kiddie fiddler. To put it in blank terms, it's still a good painting. The man behind it is maybe not. But it's again, did this whole thing with and again, we tread carefully because of allegedlys, but did Philip Schofield abuse his power, misuse his power, should we say, misuse his power? Did he promise something to a young co-worker? We'll never know that. It may come out in it's almost unnecessary, but if in which that case, if nothing happens, was he just being kind? If out of that blossomed a relationship, or do you go back and say, yeah, but look at what he did? And you go, well, that may not have been what he intended.
Yeah.
These are questions for others to debate.
People trained in that way of deciphering and calculating and things. We again are the lowly public, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but we are not in a position. We will never have the full story, and we can only judge on hopefully what truths are revealed. But you can look at things like, and you put it very well there about watching Kevin Spacey movie. Look at R. Kelly. I mean, what the man did was absolutely horrendous. And again, if people out there, if you've not seen the documentary, it's hard watching. But
yes, it is.
It's shocking and very, very worth viewing. Does that mean that he wasn't a talented musician? Not at all. The question is, by giving him airtime, by playing those tracks, is he making money that perhaps he shouldn't be because of what he was doing during and again that's a very, very difficult. Michael Jackson's another one. Again, we don't know the stories. There are numerous documentaries. We don't know the truth. We don't really know what went on. There are arguments for different bits of the story. The man we know was very troubled anyway, but, and I say this with no sort of reservation, probably one of the greatest musicians, vocalists of all time, full stop.
Probably, yeah. Do
we now go, well, his music was shit because of things he did? No, his music.
You can't. No, it's.
But the man, you can't look at him in the same way. You can't judge in the same way.
I think. I mean, I mean, for me, I try and separate the work from the person. But like you say, did the work come out of the human being manipulating others to get there? I mean, Harvey Weinstein with I mean, the tales that no one would have believed that of Harvey Weinstein. And suddenly, actor after actor after actor came out and said, no, he did do this to me, and that was blatant abuse of power.
Yes.
Because, and vulnerable actresses, and I say actresses because that's female actors, they were vulnerable and they needed something, and he took complete advantage and abused his power. There is a wonderful not a documentary, but a wonderful play, a television series, short series starring Robbie Coltrane, called National Treasure. And I think Julie Walters plays his wife. Stunning portrayal of a man who done wrong, but what is very interesting is, and we very rarely hear it, is how the family were affected by this. And Julie Walters' performance is breathtaking. Robbie Coltrane's stunning, but it's a very, very interesting. It's a very interesting discussion of that whole thing that went on.
It's intriguing, and I think one other thing I'd like to sort of add into the mix. We talk about having this elevated position and the power. J.K. Rowling has always been very outspoken. Now, you cannot argue again that she possibly wrote the most successful books of all time, or certainly some books that have spawned one of the most successful franchises when it comes to film, toys and whatever else, and a play and everything.
It's a modern phenomenon, isn't it?
Yeah,
literary phenomenon. It really is.
She was quite outspoken on Twitter. I believe she's always been quite outspoken on Twitter. She stated an opinion, and you used the word earlier, or cancelled. She was cancelled in a lot of sort of areas and age groups and whatever because of her views. everyone's entitled to a view, but I guess you kind of have to take into the fact, if you become famous or if you become a public figure, then your opinion is more likely to be scrutinized than someone who is not.
I'm glad you said scrutinized, because it doesn't make her opinion any more or less important or valid than anyone else's. Because I could say the same thing she said, and no one would hear it. She has a platform.
I thought you could say no one would care.
Well, no one probably would, but you know what I mean? No one would care, no one would hear it. I think because she's on that elevated platform, and as you say, you know, one of the biggest literary franchises, you know, modern times. But should anyone care about what? Because she didn't use that. She didn't stand up there and go, "Whoa, I believe this. I'm going to go." It's just that I suppose on Twitter her reach is greater.
Yeah,
you know,
well,
my you know, few hundred followers or whatever it is will go, "Oh, you know, Drew's sounding off again," but she's got millions.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why
there is a fine line between having an opinion and being aware of your responsibility, I guess. And I know those two don't sound necessarily related, but
no, but I do say what you're saying.
Yeah. So should she not be allowed an opinion? Of course, she should be allowed her opinion. Every human should be allowed an opinion, as long as that opinion is not at the expense of someone's pain, I guess. So good point. Good point. Whatever. But should you be aware that you have a responsibility when you have that many people looking up to you, that perhaps you should tone things in certain ways? I don't know. It's very difficult. And there is no right or wrong answer. Again, it's lots of fine lines and sort of grey areas and whatever.
Yeah. I mean, interestingly, what we haven't spoken about, and maybe it's a topic for another time, is our programs, plays, films that are propaganda, that are made to, you know, the campaigning plays and things, because there have been quite a few.
Of course.
You know, so maybe that's a subject for the future. You know, the use of the stage as a platform to make political or otherwise points. We should. There's a subject for the future.
I mean, I guess the one other thing just to throw in the mix. We've had numerous comedians on here, some very talented people, and we've talked about the whole. If you say something that will either offend certain people or certain people don't agree with, are you in the wrong? Well, don't go to that show if you don't want to hear certain things. Don't watch a certain TV program if you don't want to see certain content. And you could push that as far as don't follow certain people on social media if you don't agree with their views and don't want to hear them. They're still entitled to them. The difficulty comes when they are so big, so well known, that you don't have to be following them to hear their opinions, because
that's yeah. I mean, I love what Ricky Gervais says. You know, people, you know, he says something. I'm offended by that. Do I really care that you're offended?
Yeah.
You know, where do we go from here? You're offended. Woo, brilliant. You know, I'm not. Fuck you. You know, it's you know, but it's whether, you know, we've had this discussion before, right? You know, comedians and, you know, going out and pushing the boundaries. But it's like you say, if you're offended, well, walk away. Or if you're offended, maybe you should listen a bit more and, you know, discuss things. You know, very little offends me, and I think I'm very lucky. But interesting discussion.
Yeah.
Mr. Dunning, that's very interesting.
I would say that we've done our usual trick, which is talk about a lot of stuff and come up with zero conclusions, which we're very good at. But I am going
to... I'll tell you something, mate. I've got a very strong opinion, but I'm not going to say it.
Well, I was going to conclude by saying we're not going to have a vagueness next week, and we're not going to debate without any answers. We're going to have a guest. How about that?
That's the way to go.
We'll have a lovely guest next week.
We'll have a lovely guest.
We've both been lucky enough to work with.
It's true. It's
talented, very busy. I think it's understatement, but very, very entertaining. Going to be very, very interesting, and I'm very, very much looking forward to it. And I promise you, I'll be back in navy blue next week.
Mate, if you're not, I'm doing it behind a screen.
I mean, technically, we sort of are.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, but I'll be doing it as a silhouette. You know, that's certainly.
Okay. And on that note, mate.
Yes.
Cheers to you. A very, very deep conversation, but one that I think needed to be had.
Yeah, I think we cleared the air a little bit. Yeah. Come to no decisions, but hey, you know.
No. And yeah. Cheers to everyone tuning in.
Good one.
We'd love to hear your opinions, actually. Throw some messages or some comments or whatever our way. If you don't agree with anything me and Drew have said, doesn't matter. It's an opinion.
Doesn't matter.
But,
it's an opinion.
But yeah, we'll we'll see you next week.
Take care, everyone.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Cheers, man.
Thanks again for watching this episode of Drewling Samantics.
Please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video.
Don't forget, we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app. And please support us on social media. All our links and handles are on screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so why not share with your family and friends so they can join in too? Thanks very much. See you next time.